Yo, guys. So I'm gonna yap about being introverted. And, this is not gonna be something that I think everybody can relate to, but I feel like this is the conversation that needs to be had because for me, I think I wasn't born an introverted person. I think we were all born to be extroverts, but something happens to us where we decide what's going to work for us. And if you don't know what I mean by work for us, I mean, there's these like situations that we experience and they could be good or they can be bad, but our mind, our bodies, our spirits put us on this path to kind of like protect ourselves from feeling a certain way again. Usually it's trauma. So for me, um, a traumatic event that I experienced in my youth was that I was the only black or I was the only African American family on the cul-de-sac or in the cul-de-sac that I grew up at. Both of my parents came from the hood, came from a tough background. And by the time they had me, they did somewhat well with their lives and their decisions that all I can really remember is growing up in the suburbs. I've definitely had moments of where I lived in the hood, like I lived in the hood with my grandfather and stuff in that nature. But I'm a kid. I'm a baby. I'm never going to be able to say that I had a struggle or anything in that nature. So my natural upbringing is being in the suburbs. And at that time in my life, I was super duper duper energetic. I was outgoing and I loved talking to people, like even to a fault that, I get in trouble for just speaking my mind and being that type of kid. That's the type of kid I was. But with that energy, you attract other energy. And as a kid, I would always attract my neighbors to me. But my neighbors, they were white. Majority of them were white. Some of them were mixed, had some Spanish heritage within their lineage, bloodline, whatever, right? But they wasn't even aware of it because their skin is white and my skin is dark. And it got to the point where I started to realize, like as I was hanging out with these kids, that when there's time for them to have dinner, they would do a whole like duck duck goose thing where they would say, you can come, you can come, you can come. And then, like it's like Oprah, you know, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you don't get a car, and when they say you don't get a car, or when they say, you can come to eat with me, you can come to eat with me, you can come to eat with me. And when it was time for me to when it was time for my turn, they would sit here and say, "You can't come." And then they'll continue telling the rest of the people that they could. And I'm not gonna drag that type of stuff out, but they got to a point where my parents, mainly my father, he bought me a PlayStation, helped me stay in the house so I wouldn't have to deal with stuff like that. And I kind of became um isolated. I was trying to find the right word, but it was isolated because, and to be honest with you, I have a half brother and a half sister, but in my household, I never was around my brother because my brother was on my father's side of the family, and I don't know my father's side of the family. And of course, I had both my parents in my life as a child, so I grew up with my mother's side of the family. And my mother's side of the family never tried to separate my sister from me. So in my My whole life, I've always called my sister sister. Uh, Yes, I know her real name, but if you ever be around me and my sister, her name is Sister. That's her name. So no, I never really thought of her as a half sister. But also, in saying that, um, she's older than me. So I really didn't hang around my sister like that. So who I hung around was me, myself, and I. And as was lucky enough to have like family members, like my cousins and stuff, like I had some younger cousins. I have one cousin that is around my age, but we hung out when we were younger, but as we got older, s- had different life ambitions, I'll say. And I could get into that another time. But I guess that isolation didn't help. And I could think where, I'm older, I get a little bit older in my late adolescence and going into my teenage years. Where now a black kid is now popular because you got 50 Cent and you got Eminem, you have Kanye becoming a thing. Oh man, if I could fast forward and when Lil Wayne, the Carter 3 came out, oh yeah, black people are the shit at this time. So especially in the suburbs. So so now you get put in these situations, these social interactions where, are you gonna be like 50? Are you gonna be like Lil Wayne? Or are you a Kanye? Is that what you are? Is that what you are? And I'm not a performative type of person. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a party or I've been in a car with somebody and and I can go back in my mind and remember that you used to throw rocks at me, hit me with sticks, your sister tried to spit on me, something in that sort of nature. But now because we're a little bit older and we're past that, you know, now I have really nothing to say. I'm so socially awkward now. These are the incidences where I have to develop some type of social skills or have to be social. And it was really, really hard. And then on top of that, you could be in these social situations. It could be alcohol involved, could be weed involved, other people could be doing drugs, things in that nature. So now all these things are enhancing this awkwardness within me, of course. But I started off this yap session by saying that we all were born to be extroverts, right? But now in my current state, I'm an introverted person. And I think with all the stuff that I've experienced in my childhood, going into my adolescence and teens, now being an adult, it shaped me to be an introverted person. So I know that there's moments where I can be an extrovert and I could be outgoing and talk and be the life of the party. But a lot of my experiences and the direction that I took, it's easier, it's comfortable for me to be more of an introvert. So I'm not shy, but I might be shy, or I could just have trauma, and which I know I do, and the trauma is what I live through. The trauma that I live through keeps me comfortable, as sad as that sounds. It's uncomfortable to sit here and try to get out of that trauma, that childhood trauma that I experienced. It's uncomfortable for me to unpack that trauma, to be an extroverted person, to be a more social person, to sit here and have to deal with the uncomfortable conversations of just getting to know people. I think I think that's it's a side conversation there that a lot of people, when they talk about introverted and extroverted people, that they just skip over that. They want to just try to say like an introverted person is shy or they're not confident or whatever the case may be. But if you could really just look at an individual and unpack them, there could be a lot more to that person. And I just wanted to share that little thought about why people could be like introverted, you know?